everyone, and welcome back. We're diving deep today into AI and the future of work. And, this is a topic I'm really fascinated by.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really hot topic right now, and for good reason, I think.
For sure. And you shared this amazing video with me by Ivan Nedrovo.
Yep.
And his concept of a post-labor economy, it's a little unsettling.
Right.
But also incredibly thought-provoking. So I figured, let's dive in and explore this a little bit.
Yeah, sounds good.
One of the things that really struck me was Ivan's comparison of AI to the invention of electricity. He actually calls it the new electricity.
Right.
So what makes that comparison so powerful?
Well, I think it's powerful because when you think about electricity, it wasn't just a new energy source. It actually fundamentally changed how society worked.
Right.
It revolutionized manufacturing communication, even how we live our daily lives.
Absolutely.
And AI has that same potential. It's not just about automating tasks.
Yeah.
It's really about transforming how we work, learn, and interact with the world around us.
And that makes total sense. And just like the transition to an electrified society, this AI revolution is going to bring both opportunities and challenges.
Oh, for sure.
One of the challenges that Ivan highlights is this idea of the AI divide, the unequal access to AI technology and knowledge. What are some of the potential consequences of this divide? And maybe even more importantly, what can we do to mitigate it?
Well, it's a really crucial question because this gap in access could really exacerbate existing social and economic inequalities, and those who are already marginalized could fall even further behind.
Yeah.
And Ivan points to Colombia as an example of a country that's trying to address this proactively.
Oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. What are they doing specifically?
Well, they're making some really big investments in nationwide AI education and training programs. And their goal is to equip their citizens with the skills they'll need to actually thrive in this AI-driven economy.
So they're trying to kind of future-proof their workforce a little bit.
Exactly. It's not just about the technical skills.
Right.
It's also about fostering things like creativity and critical thinking adaptability, those uniquely human qualities that I think are going to become even more valuable.
Absolutely. And it seems like they're really trying to make this a more inclusive AI ecosystem.
They are. It's definitely a model that a lot of other nations are paying close attention to.
Now let's talk about one of the biggest potential disruptions that AI might bring. The economic implications of a world where human labor might become less central. Ivan explores the concept of universal basic income, or UBI, as a potential solution. Can you break that down for us? What is it and how might it work?
Sure. So UBI is basically a system where every citizen receives a regular, unconditional payment, enough to cover their basic needs.
Okay.
And the idea is to create this safety net, especially if jobs become scarce because of automation and AI.
So it's like a financial cushion to help people adapt to this new economic reality.
Exactly.
But how would something like UBI be funded? Where would the money come from?
Well, that's one of the biggest questions right now that everyone's trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Ivan suggests that one potential source could be taxing the very automation and AI-driven production that might displace human workers in the first place.
So kind of like a feedback loop in a way.
Right.
It's a really interesting idea. But I imagine it would be incredibly complex to implement UBI, especially on a global scale.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There are so many challenges.
Yeah.
Each country has its own unique economic context.
Yeah.
And then there are the global implications, too.
Yeah.
Like, how would this work across borders?
Right.
Especially with such vast economic disparities.
It's a huge question.
Yeah.
Now, Ivan does a thought experiment in his video about a potential UBI system in Ecuador where citizens would receive $2,000 per month, including subsidized healthcare.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what kind of ripple effects that could have on society? What would that world look like?
Well, imagine a world where people aren't so reliant on traditional jobs for survival. We might see people focusing less on accumulating wealth and more on things like personal growth and well-being and community engagement.
It's like we'd be redefining what success even means.
Exactly. And it might even lead to the status economy that Ivan talks about, where social standing is determined not by how much money you make, but by the contributions you make to society, your skills, your passions.
It sounds like a pretty radical departure from how we view success today.
It would be.
Yeah.
But it's one of those possibilities that we need to explore if we're seriously thinking about an AI-driven future.
Now, even in this potential post-labor world, Ivan talks about forever jobs, roles that will likely remain relevant because they tap into these uniquely human qualities that AI, at least for now, can't replicate. What are some of those job categories?
Yeah, so Ivan outlines these 6 key dimensions of these forever jobs. And some of them, like healthcare professionals, therapists, social workers, they all rely heavily on strong interpersonal skills and emotional intelligence.
Right.
Things like understanding human emotions and nuances of communication and building trust and rapport. Those are hard to replicate in a machine.
Absolutely. It's not just about providing care. It's about understanding the human experience and responding with empathy.
Exactly. Another dimension involves jobs that require deep cultural understanding and context.
Okay.
So think anthropologists, historians, local tour guides.
Okay.
These professions rely on a nuanced understanding of history and traditions and values, things that AI might struggle to grasp.
Yeah, I can see that.
Then there are jobs that demand creative problem solving in these dynamic real-world environments, like skilled trades or emergency responders.
Okay.
These professions require quick thinking, adaptability, decision-making in unpredictable situations.
So jobs where human intuition and experience are still really essential.
Exactly. And those are just 3 of the 6 dimensions that Ivan explores.
Okay, this is all so fascinating.
It is.
I can't wait to hear more about the other forever job categories. But before we move on to part 2, I want to take a moment to connect this back to you, our listener. How are these ideas resonating with you? What thoughts or questions are coming up for you as we explore this potential future of work?
Yeah, what skills do you think will be most valuable in this new landscape?
These are really important questions to consider.
Yeah.
And we'll be back in just a moment to continue unpacking Ivan's ideas and discussing their implications for your life and career.
Absolutely.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the future of work. We left off talking about those forever jobs that Ivan highlights in his video. Remember those?
Yes, definitely. So we covered 3 dimensions so far: jobs that require strong interpersonal skills, jobs that need cultural understanding, and then ones that really rely on real-world problem solving. What are the other categories?
Right. So the 4th one he talks about are jobs that require uniquely human skills and artistry. So think like musicians, craftspeople, performers. These are fields that really rely on that human touch.
Yeah.
That level of creativity and expression that's hard to replicate with an algorithm.
Right. Even with AI being able to generate art and music now, there's still something about that human element, the passion and emotion that goes into it.
Exactly. And then the 5th dimension is jobs that demand ethical decision-making and judgment.
Okay.
So it feels like human rights, advocacy, philosophy, even spiritual leadership.
Mm.
These require people to grapple with complex moral dilemmas, to weigh different values, and make judgments that are rooted in human experience and empathy. Things AI probably won't be able to do anytime soon.
Right. It takes human wisdom and experience and just that ability to navigate ethical complexities.
Exactly. And then the final dimension, the 6th one, involves roles that rely on intangible values and specialized expertise that are hard to quantify or automate.
Okay, so what kinds of jobs would fall under that category?
Well, think about things like high-end customer service, specialized consulting, even roles focused on fostering innovation and creativity within an organization.
I see. So it's really about blending that human insight with strategic thinking and being able to adapt to new situations.
Right, exactly. And, those are just a few examples of the many professions that Ivan believes will remain relevant in this AI-driven world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it really comes down to those underlying skills and qualities that make these roles uniquely human and resistant to automation.
Yeah, it's about focusing on what makes us human, our strengths, the things AI can't replicate.
Right. So now Ivan also spent some time talking about how different governments and institutions around the world are responding to the rise of AI. He calls it the global response to AGI. And it's clear we're still in the very early stages of figuring out how to navigate this new territory.
Yeah, it's like we're in this experimental phase, trying to understand both the potential benefits and the risks of AI.
Exactly. He mentions all these recent summits and conferences that have been happening, like the one in Tokyo, where experts and policymakers are coming together to discuss, the implications of AI and try to start developing these ethical frameworks and international collaborations to guide its development.
So it's like a global conversation trying to figure out how to manage this technology responsibly.
It's a really complex conversation, too. There are a lot of different viewpoints.
Right.
Some people want to take a more cautious approach, emphasize proceeding slowly and carefully, and others are much more optimistic and see AI as a force for good. That can help us solve some of the world's biggest problems.
Right. It's like we're at this crossroads trying to decide which path to take. And the decisions we make now are going to have huge implications for the future.
Absolutely. And Ivan doesn't shy away from talking about the potential risks of AI either.
Right.
He explores those what-if scenarios where things could go wrong, from job displacement and economic inequality to even AI being used for malicious purposes.
Yeah, those are definitely concerns we need to be thinking about.
He really emphasizes the importance of human agency, though, reminding us that we have the power to shape the future of AI, and ensure that it's used for the benefit of humanity.
It's a powerful message. It's a reminder that we're not just passive observers. We can be active participants in shaping the future.
In a more personal way, Ivan also shares his own journey with AI, his own explorations of its potential, and his vision for a future where humans and AI can coexist.
Yeah, I really like that part of the video. He seems so passionate about understanding not just the technical aspects of AI, but also the philosophical and existential implications.
He's a deep thinker, for sure. He talks about his own project, SHIFTERLABS,
right,
where he's experimenting with all these different ways to use AI to enhance human capabilities and create a positive impact.
Yeah, he shares his successes and failures, too. It's really inspiring to see someone so dedicated to using AI for good.
It is. He also kind of takes you on a tour through the world of AI research, exploring all these advancements in things like natural language processing, computer vision, machine learning.
He seems to really have a deep understanding of this field.
He does, but he manages to explain these complex concepts in a way that's so engaging and accessible.
Yeah, I found it really easy to follow along even the more technical stuff.
And he even provides a glossary of key terms and concepts.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah, it's almost like having an AI tutor guiding you through everything.
Now, before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll hear Ivan's conversation with Nicholas Marquez, I want to emphasize that all of these are potential scenarios,
right?
Possibilities, not certainties. The future is still being written.
It is.
And it's up to all of us to help shape it. So what are your initial reactions to what we've discussed so far? What stands out? What questions do you have?
Yeah, take a moment to reflect on what you've learned and how these ideas might impact your own life and career.
We'll be back in just a moment to delve into Ivan's conversation with Nicholas and explore how these concepts are playing out in countries like Colombia and Ecuador. All right, so we're back, and now we're finally getting to that conversation between Ivan and Nicholas Marquez, who's actually working on the front lines of this whole AI shift in Colombia.
Yeah, Nicholas brings a super valuable perspective, having that firsthand experience with what AI actually looks like in developing countries.
Absolutely, and they really jump right into it, discussing how AI is already impacting the job market in countries like Colombia and Ecuador. And one of the things they emphasize over and over again is the need for equitable access to technology and education.
Right, because it's not enough to just teach people the technical skills.
Exactly.
We need to help them be adaptable and embrace lifelong learning,
It's about giving people the tools to navigate a world that's constantly changing.
Exactly. And they also talk a lot about the importance of blending those hard skills, like coding with the essential human skills, critical thinking, problem solving, creativity.
It's like finding that sweet spot where human ingenuity meets AI capabilities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what you thought about their discussion on the specific jobs that are most likely to be impacted by AI. I know that's something that causes a lot of anxiety for people.
Yeah, for sure. What really stood out to me was how Nicholas talked about professions that require deep human connection and understanding, like therapists and spiritual advisors. Those are going to stay in high demand.
Right, because those are areas where human empathy and intuition are just irreplaceable.
Exactly. And he contrasted that with things like law and accounting, where AI tools like ChatGPT could really start taking over tasks that used to be done by humans.
Yeah, it's not that those jobs will disappear completely. It's more that they'll be reshaped by AI.
And it highlights the need for people in those fields to really adapt, embrace those new technologies and learn how to use AI to their advantage.
Right. So let's actually listen to Ivan and Nicholas dive into some of the more challenging aspects of this AI-driven future, specifically the potential for job displacement and the economic inequalities that could result.
I remember thinking this was one of the most thought-provoking parts of the whole conversation.
It was. So let's hear a little snippet of what they had to say.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so here's the clip.
I really appreciate how Nicholas challenges that assumption that people will just become lazy if they have a basic income.
Yeah, he sees it as a chance for people to actually pursue work that's more meaningful, that they actually enjoy.
It's a really hopeful perspective.
Right.
And it ties into that whole idea of the status economy we talked about earlier.
Right, where social standing is less about how much money you make and more about how you contribute and what you're passionate about.
So Ivan and Nicholas also talked about how AI might impact our consumption patterns. And I found that part of the conversation super interesting.
Me too. I think it gets at some really fundamental shifts that could happen. So let's listen to that part.
Okay, here it is.
It's interesting how Nicholas thinks material possessions might become less important, and things like experiences and relationships and personal growth will take center stage.
Yeah, and his prediction about self-driving cars being everywhere within a decade is pretty bold.
It is, but it also kind of makes sense with the direction things are heading.
For sure. So as their conversation wraps up, Ivan asks Nicholas this one final question. What advice would he give to someone who wants to be prepared for this future of work in the age of AI?
That's a question we've been talking about throughout this whole deep dive. So I'm really curious to hear what Nicholas says.
Me too. Let's listen.
Wow, what a simple but powerful message. Learn to learn.
Right.
It's all about staying curious, being adaptable, always growing.
It's like he's saying the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we actively create.
Exactly. And he emphasizes those human skills that will be even more important in an AI world. Critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, collaboration, communication.
And being open to technology, seeing AI as a tool, not a threat.
So this has been such a fascinating deep dive into the future of work in the age of AI.
It really has. We've explored so many ideas and possibilities.
Big thanks to Ivan Idrovo for creating such a thought-provoking video.
Yes. And to Nicholas Marquez for sharing his firsthand experience and insights.
And of course to you, our listeners, for joining us on this journey.
Now we want to hear from you. What are your takeaways from this deep dive? What are you thinking about now? What steps are you going to take to prepare for this future, or maybe even help shape it in a way that feels right to you?
We want to keep this conversation going. So share your thoughts, and until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
See you next time.